And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo, and of course broadcasting on TV1, part of the Capital Maharaja Group. And this morning, on the day after the history was made at Housetoft, when a serving Prime Minister turned up at a judicial process at the Commission of Inquiry. And to discuss that and some other aspects of what this ongoing Bondgate issue is Mr. Kirti Tennakoon, the Executive Director of
Cafe Campaign for Fair and Fair Elections. Good morning,
Very good morning to you. Lovely having you here. And of course, we have the former Chairman of the Bank of Ceylon, Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Faras.
Lovely to see you again, and thank you for coming in here. Of course, very important program this morning because we want to look at what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most significant part of all this that happened yesterday?
Well, the appearance of the minister in charge of the subject of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka before the commission was warranted, was demanded, and it happened yesterday. However much we are not happy about the manner in which he was dealt with, in the sense that there was so many things to be elicited as information, as clarifications, as verifications from Mr. Wickramasinghe as the minister in charge of the subject of the central bank.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was a very big obstacle to that, it appears, because he is the Prime Minister of the country.
Yeah.
So everybody had a bit of a, difficulty in doing the right thing in the normal way. Things appear to be very, very abnormal. I mean, giving a set of questions beforehand, confining his examination before the commission only to those questions, and apparently with no cross clarifications coming from the people who are supporting the commission. So all these things look a bit abnormal for us.
Right.
I think it should not have happened that way, because the message we get is there is something about the law happening in this country. Unequality. Is it unequality before the law? If it is so, it's bad.
So you think it might be inequality. Are you struggling to tell me that there were, what are you trying to really say is that there were kid gloves on?
Definitely, definitely.
I mean, you're from the jewellery trade. You know, the nice pieces of jewellery, you put gloves on and then you handle them. Is that what happened here?
Exactly.
Was this a piece of jewellery?
It was not. It's totally unnecessary to do so. If it was more frank and forthright,
yes,
it would have been more appealing to the public, because this is a matter of national interest.
Now I want to say this. Our dear Prime Minister, when he came out and he met the scrum of the media people out there, he could have been very much better organized than that. And so, of course, they wanted to make sure that this was some sort of impromptu, whatever, but it was impromptu chaos. Anyway, the thing is, he said that this is the kind of thing that the system that they want to instill, referring to the fact that he, as a serving Prime Minister, has arrived at some sort of judicial process. But actually, wouldn't it have been far better if he had actually come, and then at least we could have accepted it, if, like Mr. Rusiripala says, there were no kid gloves?
For us, I mean, the first time when this bond scam happened, in March 5th and 6th, we started saying that there's an issue right down there. The issue has to be addressed. Then, for the first time, the first official announcement from the government side came with James Bond behind, Brook Bond behind, and all these bonds, other bonds behind, not the real bond scam behind. What he tried to say, Prime Minister say, is that to cover up. He tried to cover up continuously until yesterday.
And then yesterday, because he was forced to, Mr. Rusiripala, he's now trying to turn it around the PR side and say, well, look, this is how it should be. If what he's saying is true, Mr. Rusipala, and like Mr. Kirti said just now, do you think that he should have initiated a proper inquiry all the way back in 2015?
It is not a negative aspect in that perspective, I should say.
Yeah.
It goes beyond. I mean, he should have initiated some kind of a acceptable inquiry to elicit the correct information and eliminate the doubts of the people. He did something more than that. From the public eye, what we see is he even prevented such things happening.
Yeah. Indeed. That's the problem.
That is the problem.
And his
failure to initiate something we can excuse.
Yeah.
But if apparently what he did appears to be a blocking of the passage, for which someone totally outside had to intervene and find a cause of
Whereas moreover, he didn't come there to the commission not as the Prime Minister. He came as the man who is in charge of that particular central bank.
Yes, of the in charge of the subject.
And we were campaigning, we were asking Prime Minister to give some sort of explanation on this for almost 2.5 years, which did not happen.
So I think, gentlemen, what you are trying to say is that had the Prime Minister or the Minister in charge of the subject of the central bank, if he had acted with all proper probity all the way at the beginning when concerns are first raised, then he could say this quite clearly. And we would be happily accept it and agree with him. Is that what it is?
It has his non-taking the proper action at the proper time not only has sort of created problems in the minds of the people, it has led to the colossal loss to the government and a loss to the central bank by a repetition of the very act that was denounced by the people as irregular by the second bond on the 29th of March 2016 and 31st of March 2016. Today we are exposed to, we are getting information, revelations as to how that has happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Indeed.
Moreover, it created suspicion on Prime Minister also, and that's what...
How the ministers have intervened and how the state banks have been forced to or virtually asked to keep out,
indeed,
from the business transactions.
I'm going to come to that in a second. I just want to tell our viewers and our listeners that essential reading today would be the island, because inside there you could find word by word, verbatim as you say, the affidavits of the Prime Minister with the answers. So that's top journalism for you, because the island have taken the trouble of asking for these affidavits, which should be a matter of public record anyway, which is a point that we've been making on our program too. So get hold of the island and read those affidavits. It's compelling reading. It's a must read. And so well done to the news team of the island for having done that. It's good that we are
having all the documentation.
We are having all the documentation, and that the AG's department, all you had to do was ask for that, and it was given. So excellent. But now, Mr. Rusipala, yesterday the Prime Minister at this wonderful event of the Commission of Inquiry, he said that there was no policy for the state banks to bid low at the auctions.
Yes.
At the central bank auctions, right?
Yeah.
Now, that is remarkably at odds with what these other meetings, if you remember, they had meetings, there was other evidence laid before the Commission in which they said that there were meetings of the state banks called by the Minister of Finance, Ravi Karunanaike, in which he told them that he wanted to bring down the interest rates and he asked them to bid low.
Yes.
Right? Now, this was not once, but twice. In fact, they came back and they even started saying, oh, well, excuse me, you told us to do this and we've been beaten. And he said, well, don't worry about it. It won't happen again.
Yes.
And the second time round too, it's the same thing. He asked them to bid low, and Perpetual and Company and all the others bid higher.
Yes.
But my point here, Mr. Risipala, is,
yes.
So that wasn't policy. Because if it was policy, the two Tennacones and me, we won't be talking about it.
Exactly, Faraz. The issue here is very crystal clear, and the Prime Minister, wittingly or unwittingly, making this statement that it was not a policy decision is the matter that we are concerned with. If anything is a policy decision, there will not be this calamity, created about it.
Yeah.
Policy,
because
the policy decisions are taken in a forum, valid, authenticate forum, in a manner that it could be called a policy decision.
Indeed.
As long as something is a policy decision, nobody will have a clamor about it.
Indeed.
The whole trouble here is what has happened under his in an institution under his purview.
Yes.
These decisions that are not tantamounting to policy decisions have been implemented.
Yes.
Who is responsible for us when such things happen? It is not the decision part, whether it is a policy decision or non-policy decision.
Yeah.
The most important thing is if something which is not a policy decision is implemented in his own ministry, who is responsible? I hold the minister in charge of the subject totally responsible for such things. And you mentioned about the second instant, the decision taken by the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Now, his own decision, the directive that he gave.
You are talking about the directive to Arjuna Mahendra. To change the system.
Change the system. That is also a decision not in keeping with the policy. It is not a policy decision.
Indeed.
It is a personal directive as far as we are concerned, until and unless it is endorsed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank. It remains a personal directive not amounting to a policy decision.
An arbitrary decision.
Arbitrary.
In as much as the Prime Minister claims to have done the same thing in terms of the state institutions bidding low, that there was no policy decision.
If somebody is accusing Ravi Karunanayake for it,
Yeah.
that same person should accuse the minister in charge of the subject of the central bank on the same grounds.
On the same grounds that there was no policy decision to change that system.
Yes.
And then the Prime Minister so admitted yesterday. He said that they had no time because they were trying to turn around an economy. One was on the books and the other economy was off the books. And my contention then, Mr. Keerthi, is why didn't he go to the cabinet, at least?
The issue here, this is a well set up the thing. And finally it got caught, it got all the attention, it was exposed well, and they tried to cover it up. There was no policy decision, as Mr. Tennacoon said here. And even on the telephone calls conversation, it's a PM who said that he got a call from Arjuna Mahendra at 8 minutes past 12, just after this issue. By that time, the monetary board has not finished its meeting.
Right.
So that monetary board meeting finished at 1:30. So it is the arbitrary decision by the central bank governor that proves that it was not the policy decision. It was not technically correct. The governor influenced it and get what his boss said.
He wanted to do, he just acted solo.
So,
I want to say this to you, Mr. Risipala. This Prime Minister is something else. Because I'm sitting there yesterday hearing all this, right? And I'm thinking to myself, he's an artist. He paints a lovely picture. It's like when he came out of the bond and he said, oh, look, this is the culture that we want to inculcate. Right. Then we forget, for that moment, everyone's forgotten that like you just pointed out, the change of the system of awarding the bonds was not a policy decision. That was a solo decision he made. And he told his mate, Arjuna Mahendran, to change that system and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's one point. The second point, he tells us here that there was no policy decision for the state banks and institutions to bid low.
Yeah.
Yet, when we examine these facts with sort of cold neutrality, the Prime Minister told us that he instructed or he asked Arjuna Mahendran to ensure that there was no conflict of interest. But like you pointed out yesterday, actually speaking, when Mr. Mahendran was appointed, I think that on the 23rd of March,
23rd of January.
23rd of January 2015, a week before, his son-in-law, Arjuna Aloysius,
on the 16th,
had actually stepped off the board. But these are mere ruses. They are just pedantic nonsense. As I say, the Prime Minister painting a picture of probity. Absolute rubbish, because Mr. Arjuna Aloysius, when he stepped off, he remained the de facto director of that company. So much so that his email address was the email address that was published on the central bank's website for several weeks thereafter, until we pointed it out on one of our programs here. Right? Now, this is what I mean about painting a nice picture. Oh, it's all fine. It's all brilliant. Right? And what did he do, Mr. Rusripala? He merely accepted the word of some man that everything was fine, that he had been removed. In fact, Mr. Mahendran was quoted in one of the papers, maybe the Sunday Times. I'll be mistaken, but it was in print. He said that this is one of the possibilities, that his son-in-law could step off. He's not involved in the management. What complete nonsense. What complete nonsense. That company, Perpetual Treasuries, was owned, ultimately was owned by Arjuna Aloysius and Jeff, his dad.
Whereas the law governing the insider dealing and conflicts of interest is very sensitive. It's much more sensitive than what these people are trying to make it out. There are no way how can they can escape from this responsibility.
Come on, Mr. Rusripala, does the Prime Minister think that just by saying that, that we don't know? No. The public knows what it is. Yeah. It's a wholly owned, in effect, it's a de facto wholly owned subsidiary.
No, you see, if you go deeper into the sensitive areas for us, there are certain things, I'm sorry to state this, not yet elicited in the proper manner. I will give you, just permit me to give one instance. On the 23rd of January, the first monetary board meeting under the chairmanship of the governor of the central bank was held on the 23rd of February. I think it was the first or the second. There was a strange proposal by Arjuna Mahendran to that monetary board. You know what that proposal was? The proposal was, he asked the officials who participated at the monetary board unofficially as in attendance, whether there is sufficient facilitation to the primary dealers to obtain loans from the central bank. Now, I am asking this question for us, where the hell did this arise in this country before?
Exactly.
The officials who participate were bewildered because there was no such issue. But for Mr. Mahendran, the newly appointed governor, it has been an issue of some sort.
You're absolutely spot on. One other thing. We're talking about the Prime Minister painting this picture. What on earth was the Bank of Ceylon doing, dishing out billions of rupees in facilities to Perpetual Treasuries to trade? What absolute rubbish. They should have given that money to the EPF or to some other state institution, not to some private company that had been formed about a year ago.
First, let me intervene, because you mentioned the word Bank of Ceylon. I think the thing that I mentioned a while ago, the governor of the central bank directing the officials of the central bank to find out whether there is sufficient facilitation available would have been a reason behind for the Bank of Ceylon to lend monies like
and
that.
And without board approval.
Exactly.
No board approval. And you as a banker, you know about all these risk management committees and all sorts of things. What did they do? Did they just paint them all away, did they?
It's a totally unwarranted thing.
This is a well-planned thing.
On that note, let's go for a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back to Newsline, that program that wakes everybody up in the morning. Well, unfair to Bandula, they do too, right? So here we are once again. I'm posing to you that this is all one brazen show. There's nothing real about it. Do you know that young girl, that young lady from Ireland who came here in search of her mother, Cherie Atchison? She came because she said that her life, even though she had perhaps everything she wanted to, she's successful professionally and so on, but she said, I wanted to find my mother because nothing she had was real. She was after the truth. Now, in this case here, this Prime Minister is painting various pictures. For whom, Mr. Rusripala? He says there was no state policy. And then his Minister of Finance is saying that he wants to bring the interest rates down. There are no two countries here. It's supposed to be one nation, one country, one Sri Lanka.
And for us, moreover, the same the same Bank of Ceylon chairman is still down there. And the central bank should step in now. I mean, we can understand the pressure the present central bank governor is on this particular issue, but the monetary board and the other proper policy establishments get on board and address this issue now. What the Prime Minister said is totally contradicts with the Ravi Karunanaike. It totally contradicts with the other witnesses.
I want to interrupt you because we got loads of questions this morning, but I'm just going to read just one out, if you permit me, gentlemen.
Sure.
Prime Minister has a thick skin. He has no shame. If this happened in a developed country, the PM would have resigned a long time ago. I won't mention who mentioned it, but I've got it here. It's about the third time I'm getting messages from this person. I don't know who it is or she, but that's what he has to say, Mr. Rusripala.
Yeah. Now, coming back to this issue of the state banks, Faraz, we don't need the central bank to initiate, like my good friend Kirti said. There is an established Supreme Court law in this country, the Silreddy case. Now, Lalit did not take the decision to issue Silreddy. No, he carried out apparently the instructions, wrongful instructions given by somebody, and he is expiating for his sins.
Correct.
Now,
that poor chap's lost he's in the process of losing his pension. 38 years of government service.
Very unfortunate. But these state bank people, you know, they have done the same thing. If the same principle, the obiter dictum applies to them, they should be out now.
Absolutely.
All three chairmen, all the executives who participated at this meeting, and it is not once, twice.
Twice, exactly.
Once bitten, you are say twice shy or something.
Yes, once bitten, twice shy.
They are never shy.
They're never shy. That's right.
So therefore, you know, this whole thing looks, the law, the manner in which it is manipulated.
Mr. Rusripala, and then another thing, Ravi Karunanaike came here on Newsline, on Hot Seat, on Face the Nation, and he said, oh, this bond, what are you guys talking about? Nobody's quantified anything. There's nothing wrong. What absolute rubbish. This is again that thing. They make a good painters. Maybe Van Gogh needs to look out, because these guys are painting.
Whereas you have to excuse Ravi Karunanaike for that thing, because he was not in the COPE committee. The very members of the COPE committee representing his own party, the role they played was the same, no?
Absolutely.
He came and aired what was said by his colleagues in the COPE committee. They tried to paint it out. intimidate the Auditor General of this country at one stage.
Yes, and in fact, at one stage, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, is the new governor of the central bank,
yes,
had to tell them not to talk in that manner to officers of his bank.
Exactly. And you see, another very important
thing. It happened with the Aegis department. It continuously happened with the people who came in front of the court.
Exactly.
No, now see, I want to just highlight another issue.
Yeah.
Now, when the Auditor General had to submit a letter,
yeah,
it was virtually an appeal to Hadunnetti, the chairman. You know, he said, I am helpless.
Yeah.
The information that I require from the central bank is not coming forward. He said this in a letter addressed to the chairman of the court, and they referred the matter to the Attorney General for a ruling.
Yeah.
The Attorney General said there is no harm in giving this information. Still it was not given. My question is, as the minister in charge of the central bank,
yeah,
of the subject of the central bank, who went to the extent of giving directives of new policies or new systems, did they care to get that information to the Auditor General in the interest of the ongoing inquiry? He failed there. That is one thing for which he is responsible. He can be held responsible under the scope of the Gazette notification issued by the President.
Good point. One question for you, Mr. Kirti, and then you can give your take on it too. My question is this. Do you think there's enough of a culture here and a commitment to change and a commitment to the new and a commitment to uphold law if we put, or if the system will incarcerate Manik Samaravikrama, Kabir Hashim, Ravi Karunaka, Lakshman Kirialla, Sujiva Senasinghe and Ranil Wickramasinghe for their part in this sorry state of affairs?
There was so much of allegations, and now these allegations were backed with facts and figures.
Yes, but do we have a commitment? And do we have a...
what we seeing here yesterday and today, when we come to this studio, all the way, all the posters appreciating the Prime Minister to appear just for appearing in this session and all that, I think a huge cover-up, pumped money, pumped media, well-set media shows and all that. I think the cover-up is on the way. So we cannot hope, if the serious sort of policy decisions take place from the executive, I mean, we are on a wrong track for that matter.
Mr. Rizpala, do you think there's a culture that will see these people arrested and incarcerated, remanded?
Far as when we see things happening in the civilized democratic world, we feel ashamed of this state of affairs. Now, in the Queensland state government of Australia, the Deputy Prime Minister on the citizenship issue resigned, tenders his resignation very recently, 1 week ago. You know, the reason is nobody accused him of citizenship. He said, my father was a British citizen until I verify the fact that, because by virtue of that fact whether I also belong to that citizenship, I will resign. That is the degree of, you know, the upholding of the democratic values in the world, in the civilized world. Here is a situation where even if you are whipped, chasing behind you, you still run. You never give up.
Indeed.
So this is a sorry state of affairs. People talk about Westminster systems, that system, this system. They come dressed they come dressed like Westminster, but dress doesn't mean a thing.
I'll tell you what, all of these people who paint a rosy picture or pretend to paint a rosy picture are nothing but con artists. They're not Van Goghs. Sorry, but that's they're artists. They're artists of a different breed altogether. Hard pressed to find them. Now then, we're coming to the end of our program. We've come to the end of our program. Kirti Tennakoon, this half an hour, Mr. Rizpala, has actually flown. And I know you're looking at your watch there and thinking, really, has it gone by? But there you go. When you know how time flies when one is having a good time. And it's sad that okay, we'll take this one question. Last question. Can the President remove RW quickly?
I don't think so at the moment. The political pressure, definitely. I mean, according to the system, yes, definitely, and he should be. But here, the issue...
Mr. will he be removed?
He has to be, and the President has to initiate this action while retaining the continuity of the national government. What we today need for us is a true national government.
Wonderful. That's the way it is, the way it was on Tuesday, the 21st of November, 2017 on Newsline. Take care. God bless.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.